Hi, everyone. Welcome back to SELFWIFE, the podcast where I do everything myself, which is why it's not very good. I'm really trying, though. As you can see, and I am getting better. I mean, looking back at the videos I made a mere 6 months ago, horrendous, terrible. Oh my God, those cameras that I tried first and foremost were really, really bad. But hey, that was what I was ready to do at the time. It was what I had access to. I do have a new phone now with 3 lenses. This is the first time I've ever had one. I was forced to get one because I shattered my 2-lens iPhone after getting off a phone call with my dad, in which it was just revealed to me that he has just been lying to me about so much since he went back to the hospital. He's home now on Thanksgiving, and we've been dealing with that. I had to fake it with him because I'm so good with him. I don't let him hear any of my negative feelings or my frustrations or my anger. I keep it all for myself. And I hung up the phone and I threw my iPhone across the room. And anyway, then I had to get on a plane the next day, so I didn't have time to wait for a replacement. And the only one I could get after all of the calculations, or no, it wasn't the only one I could get. It was that it was like the same price as getting another older one. Who knows how they figure that stuff out? I just like trust what I'm being told and make a decision. So this is the first time using this camera. And also, if you're watching on Patreon, you'll see that I have set up a little desk area. I decided to bring in a desk from the other room, and I have ordered some cutie little colorful things, and those will be on the desk as they arrive. And I also ordered what I'm going to try to use as a backdrop, because obviously this is not ideal. I want to hang something to cover this light switch. Maybe eventually, I was going to get a room divider because great as a backdrop, but that just seems so permanent. This isn't my home. So I'm trying something else next. So stay tuned. Things around here will get cuter. In the meantime, I've just laid 3 of these stick candles that are half burned, but very cute and colorful next to me to add a little pop of color for the Teen Vogue Awards. If you know, you know. This is coffee from truly several hours ago when I first started setting this up. I got so frustrated because this is the only room that light comes into in the house. And because it's winter, I haven't adjusted for the new light schedule. And so I came in to try to film at like 10 a.m. and that was way too late. So I'm using a light. I'm diffusing with a paper towel. I'm looking into a bounce board. I can't make the lighting better than it is right now. And honestly, all of this, everything that I've said about this setup and how I think this looks better than the last time I did a video podcast, but it's still meh. That's a perfect segue for what I want to talk about today, and it's like a term that I've coined, and it's something that I've noticed being true for vulnerable people in the world, has been true for myself, and I'm going to share it with you today. And it is there's a plane flying over. That's another thing. I'm right next to an airport. Please hold. Okay, this is a term I've coined to explain basically the predicament that you see people who have been victimized in the past or been marginalized or been mistreated. You see people like that end up in more and more situations in which they're being mistreated. And if you're not a person who has experienced being abused, being discriminated against, being taken advantage of, being made to be really vulnerable, then you might look at somebody who continues to be in unsavory situations and be like, well, what are you doing to cause this? You know, like, how did you not see it happening again when you've experienced it before? Why do you keep getting yourself in these situations? People who ask questions like that of the vulnerable typically do not have the best intentions. That's a different subject. But there are concrete reasons why it's hard for people who have been victimized in one way or another to escape situations in which they are once again victimized, either in the same way or in similar ways. And it is because of something that I like to call better, but still bad. Better, but still bad. This is something that I am having to like really learn in my life. And I've been smacked in the face with so many times in my adult life, because every single situation that I have found myself in that makes me a victim, that makes me unsafe, that causes me harm, that traumatizes me. Every single one of those situations that I've experienced in my adult life since leaving my abusive home that I lived in for 21, 22 years, okay, was better than anything I had experienced before. And when something is better than anything that you've experienced before, it is hard or impossible to see that it's still bad. I can give you so many examples of this and how I've watched this be true in my life and in the lives of others. And when I notice it now, I'm like, yeah, better, but still bad. It's just, I say those words to myself so much. And so I decided it was time to share them with you. So like, for instance, if you follow me, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard me talk about my relationship with both of my parents, very different types of people, both difficult people. I no longer speak to my mother. I went no contact with her in 2020, have never looked back, have never felt better. My relationship with my dad, very tricky, takes a lot of maneuvering, takes a lot of using every tool in my tool belt, is still really, really difficult. I'm an only child, and I was also raised in a cage. My parents divorced when I was 5, and there were multiple types of abuse in my home. And my mother is undiagnosed, but has several issues and took them all on me, of course. There's really no way around that, especially with somebody who won't get help. She found religion when she was in her mid-30s when I was a toddler. And so she was a born-again Christian. And then that was just, your sins are wiped clean. Christianity is very cut and dry. It's like you say these few words and you are now perfect in the eyes of the Lord. And you don't ever really have to worry about anything else. You don't have to work on yourself. You don't have to admit faults. You have to just give everything to the Lord from now on. He's in control. You kind of just take a back seat. You're a passenger. Jesus, take the wheel. It's a scam in my experience and in my assessment, the whole Christianity thing, but that's another subject as well. But really harsh, punitive Christianity was my entire life. Nothing that I did left this tiny little bubble that my mom created around she and I and the Lord Jesus Christ. So when I got out of the house, 21, 22 years old, out on my own for the first time, got a roommate, was in school to become a teacher, was also working in schools when I wasn't in school, getting my degree. I had so few life experiences. I knew nothing about the real world. I knew all of my education, everything I knew was filtered through my mother, and it was all Christian content or, very few things that she deemed appropriate to allow in our home, like Father of the Bride. For whatever reason, Father of the Bride parts 1 and 2 were allowed, and therefore I have seen both of those films 200 times. God, what else? Really, most music was not okay. It was mostly Christian music. I watched Full House. I watched Saved by the Bell. That was kind of a big deal. But do you get what I mean? Like just very, very little interaction with the outside world. And also I was just in school. I was very dedicated to being a teacher, and it made total sense to me for all of my time to go toward my education and to go toward working with kids. It was what I cared about. And I just didn't have a life outside of that because I had never been allowed to build one. I didn't know what else was out there. And eventually I moved to Los Angeles with another friend and roommate. And then that's kind of where I started to have experiences with other people that were of the world, that were very much outside of my Christian bubble. And it blew my mind and also terrified me. I didn't feel like I could hold my own in a conversation with anybody about anything because I knew about Christianity. I knew about children and teaching. And I had a lot of trauma and had just been so mercilessly taken down by my mom every day of my life that I just had no self-esteem, no self-confidence, didn't feel like anybody owed me the time of day, right? I was so used to being mistreated. My needs had never been, I mean, forget prioritized. They weren't even acknowledged in my house. I wasn't, and or when they were, I was punished for having them. You know, like needs is not a thing. If you have a narc parent or narc parents, you know what that's like. Like you don't exist for you. They don't exist for you. You exist for them. And so when that's your whole life, and then you go into a field, like I was in school to become a teacher for students with special needs, and those were the classrooms I was working in, where you're giving of yourself, and so many other people's needs are in focus. It's once again very easy to just like never think about your own. Well, what that means is that when you start building friendships out in the world, and you start entering into romantic relationships, you're not typically those people are going to treat you like shit, because that's what you're drawn to, and that's what feels comfortable to you. Those are the environments that you feel safe in. You know, those are the people with like the senses of humor that you find funny. Like my friends were just all like mean, you know, like mean but funny, and everyone just made fun of each other, and you weren't allowed to like shine. You weren't allowed to be like seen trying. That was another thing. Like with young Christians, there's a lot of like, oh my God, did you just try to be funny? Or like, what are you wearing? Oh my God, I could never like just, it's a very, you know, Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity, the type I was raised in, is like a very like small-minded way of thinking, tiny little boxes, and you have to stay in those boxes. Excuse me. Let me take a sip of my lemon water. Everyone needs to be putting lemon in their water. It makes water, I'm excited to drink water all day, every day because of it. So, and that's just my experience. You know, people who had a really difficult childhood, people who grew up in abuse, everybody has their own details. People who've been victimized in any way, you have your own stories. And what that means is that you end up accepting a lot more different forms of abuse in your life while you're building relationships, while you're getting to know yourself, while you're finding your way in the world, because you don't know any better. And anything that's basically different than what you experienced before automatically feels better. So basically every experience I had in my early to mid 20s when I was out of the house, you know, living with a roommate and starting to be able to make my own decisions, everything felt like the best thing in the world. Like to be able to, you know, leave the house when I wanted to be able to choose the music I wanted to listen to be able to watch the movies that were always kept from me, to be able to make my own decisions with what I did in my free time. I was just so wide-eyed and mesmerized, like, wow, this is the world. I've never been able to interact with it before. And that sort of wide-eyed naivete lasted, honestly, I feel like the last of how naive I've been was killed, I would say like 2 years ago. Now I'm really diligent about noticing red flags and then pulling away, or noticing red flags and then linking that to stuff I've been through in the past, and then removing myself from a situation that's going to cause me more harm. That's so new. My ability to be able to even like recognize a red flag at all. That was not a thing that I was able to do throughout my entire 20s. Like, I think back then I probably would have referred to anything I refer to as a red flag now as just like a really unique person. Like, you know, when I was finally out in the world, I wanted to meet everyone. I wanted to know everyone. I just wanted to know what people were up to. And when I would meet new people and they would sort of like show me who they were and show me what their lives were about, it was never about like whether or not I liked what they were showing me or not. It was always just wide-eyed, mesmerized. Oh, wow, this type of person exists. This is one way to be. Okay, like interesting. And I was just so curious about everyone's backgrounds and like, how did you learn how to do that? And like, who got you here? Like, I very strongly relate to Kimmy Schmidt. That's what it felt like. It was just like, wow, like the big, amazing world. There's so much to see. And because I was so dedicated to my career and I spent most of my time in the classroom. I barely even went out to dinner with friends, maybe once, twice a month. I got a little bit better at socializing when I moved to Los Angeles, but even then, like, I was in my classroom, and that also sheltered me, I think, from a lot of the world. And so when you've had your decisions made for you, when you start to make your own decisions, sort of like, regardless of what the outcome is, you're like, cool, I just made a decision for myself and there was an outcome. Like, even that is novel, and somebody else can look at you and your decisions that you're making and be like, girl, what are you doing? How do you not, other people who have more experience, or maybe who haven't been victimized in the same way you've been, mistreated in the same way you've been, harmed in the same way you've been, might look at your life and be like, how I could have told you that was bad. That's such a place of privilege for somebody to be able to recognize a situation as being harmful and to have the privilege of saying no to that situation is, well, it's a privilege. I guess that was my point, and I just used the word too soon. But like, I've grown to a place now where I know how to determine, like, does this opportunity, does this person, does this job meet my standards? And if it doesn't, I'm able to say no. But that is such a new skill. And it's put me in so many situations. Like, I can start with relationships. When I first started dating, I dated 2 boys in high school. I was allowed to start having boyfriends at 17. And those guys were fine. My long-term boyfriend, though, after that in high school, he just treated me like he hated me, but it was like his bit. He was just really masculine. And that's like, he had like the sense of humor, like, don't touch me, like that kind. He was a football player, just like, and that really felt good to me, that he was cold, that he was mean, that he had walls up, that I felt like I had to earn his approval. That, of course, felt totally normal, reasonable, even good to me, because it's all I knew, right? Finally, got to a point where I didn't like being treated that way, and I ended that relationship. The next person after that had so many traits that the last one didn't. Oh, this person's an artist, this person is a musician and a songwriter, and this person has like this look that I am attracted to, and like all these things that I've never experienced before in another person, never met someone who has all of these traits in a single person. So I'm mesmerized. This is new and exciting, and like, oh wow, it's so much better. That person ended up treating me so badly, like totally a different type of bad than the last guy, who just like kind of openly just was mean to me, but that was his sense of humor, and just really never, every once in a while, giving me a crumb of kindness, and me just being like, he does love me. I knew it. He's a softie under that hard exterior. Like, so many, you've probably been there. Like, we've done that, and then you mature and you experience more, and you actually, honestly, like, seeing examples of other men not treating their partners that way is even huge. Like, I had never experienced seeing, people that were in a relationship with each other treat each other well. I had to call the cops on my dad when I was 5. You know what I mean? Like, my first example was really bad. So these situations that I'm in, no one's throwing me across the room, injuring me. No one's needing to have the cops called on them. So that's better in my assessment. And it takes me a year, 2 years to realize, oh my God, this is still bad. It's just so bad in all these new ways that I didn't know to look out for yet. And that's kind of been true for every single one of my relationships. Then, the guy after that, well, he's better because he at least wants to see me during the day sometimes, and knows how to make plans, and is actually doesn't play games with his affection, and cooks for me, and like calls me a hero before I go to work every morning to go teach, and is so like vibrant and wonderful. Narcissist. So yeah, all those things are true, but then also incredibly cruel and demeaning, and making me like feeding into my insecurities, and quick to anger, and like sober for a reason, because the one time we drank together, it was not pretty and I don't want to tell that story on here. And like, and then it takes you a while to realize like, okay, this relationship felt so much better because you're noticing all of the stuff that wasn't active in the last relationship, wasn't active in the one before that, definitely wasn't active in your home life. So this is the best you've ever received. Like, oh, he cares about me. He prioritizes me. He seems to want to meet my needs. Lots of grand gestures of like acts of service. Oh my God. Amazing. Never experienced anything like it before. Oh, it's still bad. But I'm blinded by all the stuff that's better because it's new, but it's still bad. I haven't only dated men who treat me poorly. That's not the case at all. In fact, I mean, I don't... Everyone starts out treating you very well. And the charade and the performance of like who they want you to think that they are lasts a varying amount of time depending on who it is. But in my experience, especially with the very last one, like that performance drops on a dime and then you're stuck with somebody who I guess hates you, but they also will not let you leave. And they beg and cry for you to stay and promise therapy, beg, can we please go to therapy? I'll pay for it. And then you're like, okay, I guess. And then they bail on the therapy session 5 minutes before it's going to start 3 times in a row. Like, but that kind of shit where it's like, they treat you like you've never been seen or loved like this before. And that's so much better. And it's so much better than the person right before who, whatever, did A, B, and C that you could never fathom this new person doing to you. And here's the thing, they won't because it's better, but it's still bad. It's just like waiting for its turn to show you the new and clever ways in which this is also bad. And it's honestly an unfortunate kind of like trap or a cycle. I don't know what word to put on it. It's an unfortunate repeated experience for people who grew up being abused, who grew up in an abusive household. People who grew up in purity culture can absolutely experience this because purity culture treats women like absolute trash. So then you feel very comfortable with men who treat women like absolute trash. And it's really hard to know when you're in something that's good versus when you're in something that's better, but still bad. That's the distinction that's really, really hard for certain types of people who have been through certain types of situations in which they've been victimized in various ways. It's hard for those people, and I'm in that group of people, to determine if this is good or if it's better, but still bad. And all of my life experiences so far, I don't want to say all because some friendships I have a list of safe people in my phone. Okay. Those are people that I know are not going to harm me. I know they're not going to switch up on me. I know that those people are safe. But beyond that list, things in my life have felt so good for a while. And then I hit a point in the situation, whether it's the job, the friendship, the romantic relationship, the endeavor, where I go, fuck, I thought this was good, but it's not. It's just better than what I've known before, but it's still fucking bad. And I have to get out. There are so many ways for a person to be bad. There are a lot of ways for a situation to go south and to really slap you in the face with the reality of it. And you're like, fuck, I thought this was good because it was better, but it's still bad. And now that I think about things that way, I see that it's a pitfall that so many people fall into, and I notice it all over the place. Like sometimes people will, tell me about relationships that they're in, and they're like, but I'm just so, we're having a really hard time, but I'm so grateful that he does A, B, and C, and it's like for that person, those things represent something better, something better that person is experiencing. Like what they're getting in the relationship is better than what they've had before. And therefore they can't see that it's just still bad. And some of my friends convinced me to watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, it is a lot of screaming over brunch, which is why I wasn't interested in it, but it's of course layered, and the shit that people are going through very openly on the show is rather interesting. And, there's a woman on there named Taylor, and she's in an abusive relationship with a guy, or her husband. And I looked up her past because he is just so vile. Like he's not only horrible to her behind the scenes, but he has like no charm, no charisma. He's not fun. He ruins every party that he goes to. Like you just like can't figure out why this is happening. Also, he looks like a stock photo of like a guy who works in the office in like Downey. And she's beautiful, tall, long blonde hair. And you're just like, why? Well, come to find out, she was raised in and by abuse. And I have her book in my cart. I haven't read it yet, but I get the feeling based on everything she said on the show that she doesn't come from money at all. This guy, made her think that he was like a multimillionaire, and she really wanted to live in Beverly Hills. It's even her tagline for season 3. I fought for this zip code so hard, so I'm not going to give it up now. So for her, this relationship with this guy who was installing hidden cameras in her home to finally prove that she was cheating on him, making her take polygraph tests because he was convinced she was cheating. And then when she passed them, said that it was because she had learned how to pass a polygraph test, held her head under the water in the pool until she was gasping for air just to scare her, hitting her, throwing her into the bathtub, texting her all the time that she's a fucking whore, and that, just like a lot of really intense abuse. For her, her life was better than what she had known before because she was raised in abuse and poverty. So the situation with Russell is better than anything she's known before. And so she can't see that it's still bad because it's better. And you focus on that when you're in a situation that is abusive, or you realize you're in another abusive situation, right? You start to come to terms with like, okay, that behavior is just textbook abusive. Fuck. How did I get here? It felt like it couldn't be that. Everything else about this relationship and this person and everything they've shown me has been so new, unlike anything I've ever known before. So much better, leaps and bounds better than anything I have ever known before. And because when you're sheltered, or when you've really just had the short end of the stick a lot of the time, any sort of new experience can be like, wow, this is like lucky me that I get to experience this new thing. And it takes you a long time to realize that it's still bad. I don't know if I don't want to spoil anything if you do want to watch the show, but the way that the relationship ended, honestly, Taylor's lucky because I don't know if she was ever going to leave him, because her situation with him, while it was horrific and she was really struggling and really acting out in seasons 1 and 2, but mostly in season 2, she's fighting so hard to stay in it because it's still the best situation that she's ever experienced. And I bring it up because I think it can help people have compassion for one another. The women on the show are terrible to Taylor when she's talking about the abuse. Half of them don't believe her. They're like, meh, I don't know. She says this stuff, but then she hops on a plane with him. Yeah, like she's like, that's part of it, But, and so many of them are like, why don't you just leave? Like, hello, just leave. They're not experiencing abuse. None of them have said that they have experienced it in the past, and they have money on their own. Taylor doesn't have any money, and her husband brings in all the money, whereas a lot of the other women on the show are their own breadwinners. Not all, but a lot of them are. And so they're just like, just leave, Taylor, because they don't understand that for her, this is the best situation she's been in. It's their worst nightmare, but it's the best thing that she's ever had access to. And that is so true for so many people. It's been true in every single relationship I've been in. I'm just like, oh my God, this person is the best, because the world and its options and its variables were kept from me in so many ways that it has taken me a long time to start to sift. Like, just because something is new and different does not mean that it's good. And I need to actually really put a pin in labeling somebody as safe or unsafe until they've been in my life for a significant amount of time, until I've seen them in times of loss, until I've said no to them. Figuring out if a situation is healthy for me or not is a very big challenge for me. And I've been fooled, bamboozled so many times, because each new person, each new opportunity, each new avenue that appears before me is just like new, unlike anything I've experienced before, because specifically for me, because I was so sheltered for all of my formative years. Things about myself I wasn't even allowed to explore. Like, I'm just learning about myself for the first time. I'm learning what I need. I'm learning how to recognize my needs, how to meet them, how to nourish myself, how to take care of myself, how to prioritize myself, how to say no to abuse, how to, like I was saying before, notice red flags and then move accordingly. These are all brand new things. It's a privilege to be able to be in this position. It means that I've had access to healing. I don't mean like, oh, I always have money for therapy. That's definitely not true. And I've talked on this podcast before about how I've never paid more than $50 for therapy. I haggle with therapists, and I also can't always afford to be in therapy, but I've always prioritized healing. But to even be able to say I've always prioritized healing, like for so much of the world, that's a privileged position as well. So part of my message with this is to, if you're the type of person where you see somebody continuing to like get themselves into situations that turn out badly, you know, if that's all they've ever known, if they have a history where this could apply to them, where these opportunities and these people, you know, and these paths that they take are just new and better than what they've been offered before, have compassion with them as they're figuring out that it's still bad. It's just going to take them a long time. And also, so many people stay in abusive situations, toxic situations, unhealthy situations. People die in situations like that. You know, not everybody escapes. Part of why not everybody escapes is like, it's such a, like, I'm still learning how to not put myself in situations with dangerous people. I feel like I've avoided some stuff in the past year. I do, but I haven't like met anybody new. I'm out here isolating because I can't handle, you know, any new input. I'm trying to recover from too much input. And I want to be aware of it in the future, because in the future, I need to be asking myself, like, to really just hold off on determining whether something is a miracle or a godsend, or like, oh, an angel brought you into my life, or this is such a good opportunity. This is such a good person. This is such a good friend. This is such a good possible boyfriend or whatever. Like, I want to be a lot more clear about determining what aspects of this new person, you know, new endeavor are better than what I've experienced before. And then just wait to see what happens. You know, like now when something seems, oh, so much better. Oh, thank God, this is so much better in so many ways. I still have my guard up. I'm ready for that not to be the case. Because another thing about, if you really haven't had access to healthy environments, or you haven't had access to environments that meet your needs and stuff like that, new endeavors and new relationships with people are like puzzle pieces, and you're just like building this puzzle of what your life can look like. And it takes a while to get a lot of pieces together and be able to step back and to start to see the picture of what you're building. And oftentimes people who come from abuse or lack of education or purity culture, you know, fundamentalist religion, extremist religion, the types of mental prisons that those experiences place around people, you know, it's really hard to see the big picture. It's hard to future plan. You know, I haven't been able to future plan since I was a teacher, because I don't have any real foundation. I'm like winging it, learning stuff, trying stuff. I can plan a week in advance, but there's no way for me to know where I'm going to be in 2 months, you know? And that's been true since I changed careers and, you know, got more into documentary filmmaking and like education via media. You know, development in so many areas was really kept from me. So I'm gathering puzzle pieces as I go and stepping back and being like, oh, okay, this is the picture that I've been creating. Is this the picture that I even really want? Is this sustainable? Can I keep this going? And I've learned many times over, like, oh, fuck, no, actually. Okay, let me keep gathering puzzle pieces and see if I can like build a different picture, you know? And I've become more clear with myself around long-term desires. But as far as like setting goals, like, and by next month, I want to have this many and this much. And I don't know. I don't have all of my faculties to be able to plan like that and to structure like that. So I really am learning as I go, not only with this podcast, not only with my creative endeavors, but with life. I'm still learning as I go with relationships, because everything that I've experienced has been better, but a lot of it turns out to still be bad. And it's also been something on my mind as I watch what's going on with Gypsy Rose Blanchard, because that girl, my heart goes out to her daily. And I know everybody is following and sensationalizing her, which scares me so much for her sake, because this is such a perfect example of better but still bad. Because Gypsy, obviously, the story, mercilessly abused, got her older boyfriend to kill her mom, served prison time, is out now, and is married. She got married to a guy she met in prison. He's one of the 300, 600 men. And I think she said it was like 250. And he was like, it was more men who wrote to her in prison. He was one of them. She picked him because they had the same hometown, and they got married. They're married now. Her press tour, the Good Morning America, The View, all the stuff she's been doing, that was in her first week after release from prison. She is so vulnerable to more abuse because it's all she's ever known. So this guy, whoever he is, and literally however he treats her, will be better than what she's known before. And time will tell if it's still bad. I think it's a recipe for disaster. He is a guy out of nowhere. He's now dating a bona fide celebrity, and they have absolutely no idea how to deal with that. Bona fide celebrity ruins people who are in a lot more privileged positions than them all the time. They are incredibly vulnerable because Gypsy is going to be offered money by people who have it in the entertainment industry. And because she doesn't come from it herself, that's another way that people are so vulnerable. Like, if you don't come from money, if you don't have money yourself, and you're in a city where the people with power have money, they can absolutely use it to exploit you, to manipulate you. And you're going to be like, what a gift. These people are offering me money. And it's going to seem so much better. But it's still bad because they're exploiting you. Like, Gypsy's going to have to learn, unfortunately, that attention doesn't equal love. And look, that's a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn. And, in no way is she different than anybody else in the public eye in that way. But it's what breaks my heart about witnessing it is that because she's only known such horrific abuse, to the point that she said prison was better than living at home with her mom. Prison was such a gift. She said she was finally allowed to make friends and like make a couple of her own decisions. Prison, better, but obviously still bad because prison. And now she's out and she's being treated like a celebrity, and she has a husband who publicly, lovingly adores her, right? All of this is better than what she's been through before. But she's going to feel like all of this is love because she's never experienced love before, and attention feels better than abuse. But then, she's going to have to go through the painful process of realizing that attention isn't really love. And does her husband actually love her? Or is he just, in love with the idea of her? And does he have the faculties to be able to handle millions and millions and millions of eyes on both of them with the comments they already make about him? Like, these people are so vulnerable to more abuse. And she's out here completely on her own, and she's just going to fend for herself. And, we're all just going to watch, and we watch this stuff be done to, specifically young women, where they're platformed and treated like a queen for a fleeting amount of time, and then they're totally dropped and left to wonder about their worth, and then to fight for relevance again and stuff. Like, is being on The View, is being on a different, nationally syndicated show every day of the week and being praised and nationally globally celebrated for your release from prison better than being in prison or living with Munchausen by proxy mom. Yeah, so much better. But oh my God, it's still so bad because who does she have that she can really trust? Who does she know that she can really trust? How, and so many of us have a hard time being able to trust people, but she's so extra vulnerable, and being able to handle the level of attention and like just the opportunities now that are going to be, that's another thing. Like, God, in Los Angeles, I had so many opportunities brought to me, job opportunities, creative endeavor opportunities, collaboration opportunities, podcast opportunities even. And they just all seemed so incredible. And if, you live in Los Angeles or you're from there, or if you know Los Angeles, you know what that feels like, where it's like when you're first aligning with opportunities, and it's the first time that's ever happened, especially for me coming from just like being a teacher, everything felt like just, wow, this is amazing. It's so much better than anything I've ever known. And then so many of those ended up being actually just guys who are trying to fuck me, or not actually like opportunities that these people were actually in no position of offering, or straight up lies by guys who were trying to fuck me. Or the podcast offering thing was like a full on scam. And there were several people involved. Talked about that a little bit before. Maybe I'll tell that story on Patreon, but like, naive people who come from poverty, people who come from abuse, people who come from extreme religious trauma and stuff like that, like are so vulnerable to continue to be in situations that are better than what they've known, still bad, but they're not able to see it because all they can do is focus on what's better. And then like, thank God or thank the universe or whatever their power source is, thank that power source for this new opportunity that's so much better than anything they've known before. And it's just like a long, slow way to learn. But some people are just, that's the path that they're on. I'm one of them. I just have to learn that way. Because another thing about it is like, I'm processing people through all of my senses based on my experiences and my neural pathways and like my programming, right? My trauma, healed or not. I'm processing people through that. So it doesn't matter if someone else is looking into my life and being like, I don't know, be careful about that. Because everything in my system is going, yep, green check mark. Everything looks great according to me and my experiences. This all checks out. And I'm not going to take the word of somebody else who doesn't know me, who hasn't lived my life, who doesn't feel what I feel, quote unquote, and be like, oh, maybe they're right. No, my brain doesn't even go there. It's my brain always, when I've been warned about somebody who turns out to actually be bad, my brain is just like, it can't compute that this could be bad because it's better. And that's just, it's true. And, I've talked a lot on this podcast about developing standards and practicing boundaries and saying no and like cutting people off if they really deserve it and stuff. And that's where I'm fully at right now. That I'm just, I'm self-wife. I am focusing on me and what I need so that is my foundation going forward. I can't like give myself, I tend to really fully give of myself in relationships too. Just like whatever you need, sweetheart, that's my focus. We'll deal with my needs later type thing. I'm never doing that again. But this is all very new for me because I don't want to be so wide-eyed and pie in the sky and just continue to take these opportunities because there are a few things about them that seem shiny and better and not pull out and get the full view of what's really going on. I want to be very aware of situations that are being presented to me that are better, but still bad. So wanted to share it. Hope it resonates with you. I also think this message can help people to be compassionate for their friends who are in situations that are better, but still bad. But it also can help you be compassionate with yourself. If you keep kind of getting blindsided and you're like, I must be a fucking idiot. Just remember that it was probably a situation that was just better than what you've experienced before. And so it took you longer to recognize that it was still bad. And that's okay. That's okay. And I'm right there with you. So you're not alone. We're together in this. Just know that like you can't know until you experience something. It's experience and education are so like they're such vital resources. And I didn't have either of those things until I was 22. 25 was when I really started to like educate myself. Okay. I didn't leave my mom's house and go, I'm free. Let me like drink up the world and read books. That took me a couple years because I was getting my bearings. She did a number on me. Okay. So like, you know, my education and my experience in the world started at 25. Therefore, I have been vulnerable to just so many situations that are better, but still bad. And so if this resonates with you, just know you're not alone. And like, and so many of us are just, we're wanting to grow and expand and try new things and, you know, improve our lives and stuff. And for a lot of us, it's really easy to get caught up in all of the things about what you're experiencing that are just better than what you've had before. And it's easy for us to blind ourselves to the things that are bad. Okay. And that word can mean whatever you want it to mean in this situation, but bad for you. And so just be on the lookout for it. Be on the lookout for it. Something can seem really good because it's different, but maybe give it some time. Maybe don't commit long-term yet. Maybe just wait until you sing the praises of any specific person, until you've known them until you've seen them through some trials and tribulations in their lives, until you've seen them not get what they want. Maybe just before you go online and be like, this person is the best thing that's ever, maybe just don't. Like, just give it some time. Give it some time to determine if it's actually good or if it's just better, but still bad. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. The video of this will be on my Patreon. I took some time off from posting over there. Holidays, dad, hospital again. And also I was so sick. And, you know, even in the last episode, you could hear it in my voice. You can subscribe to the show on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon Music. You can also leave me a review. Okay, I'll see you back here next week at the same desk, but hopefully with just a few more pops of color, depending on shipping and stuff like that. And if you're listening to the audio version, maybe send it to a friend. Thanks for listening. Bye, everyone. See you next week.